Greetings, fellow researchers. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to Oxygen Not Included, the Frosty Planet, Episode 8, Suit Research. So here's our smart battery. And then automation wire between them, made out of that refined iron that we have. So that the smart battery can essentially control whether the wood burner is running or not. Because there will be times where we want the wood burner to turn off when our batteries are like full enough. So the smart battery, the high threshold, let's say, is up to 95. It could be 100. And the low threshold will turn things on at like 10. Colony achievement earned. So this is probably as a result of, yep, red light, green light, using automated buildings for the first time. So I'm going to set the wood burner to like 7 so that they actually supply the wood. And that will power up this smart battery. And for now, so these cables here are made of cinnabar ore. What I'm going to do for now is to have a iron ore connect up to it. So we have the wood burner burning wood, recharging the battery, and then it will turn off automatically once it hits the high threshold of 95%. Ignofolio, thank you for the resub. I also must say that, like, things are looking pretty swept. So now, this battery hit 95% powered, and the wood burner got disabled through the automation grid, because the batteries are sufficiently full. Perfect. And the reason not to, as Turtle in the chat said, put them up to 100% is if the power generators will produce like a full cycle of power, but there might not be room for that power. So putting it up to 100% means that you might burn excess materials for no power generation. And oddly, this is kind of true in real life. Like my phone, for instance, I've set up, I don't even know where my phone is, but my phone I've set up so that it doesn't charge past 80%, because charging up to 100% actually lowers the life of a lithium-ion battery. Is there a difference depending on which type of ore the wire is made out of? Yes. Depending on its melt temperature, yes. Not really here in this case, because the temperature difference of these two are, if the cinnabar ore ever gets up to the temperature where it would melt, my whole base is like a volcano, so it's kind of moot in this case, but it's not always moot. All right, so there we go. We finally have filtration, so now we're going to go to decontamination so that we can start to remove some of that polluted oxygen. Next up, a Luddite noodle arms digger. No, noodle arms is bad. Tidying and digging with buff interior decorator iron gut with decreased digging. That's confusing. Pokespawn or Mirthleaf. I'm going to go with Pokey. But unfortunately, this little guy is not going to live very long. I kind of like that third person until I realized that they had like noodle arms or decreased dig. It's like, nope. No thanks. Alright, so taking a look at the breathability in the base here, as you can see, with the wood burner outgassing carbon dioxide and then the alveolvero converting it back into oxygen, there's honestly plenty of oxygen in here. I didn't need to make a second sconce, so I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it would have been unnecessary. Alright, in terms of the animals in this room, we're still just at 8 critters, so the remaining flocks haven't spawned. Taking a look at the wood quantity I have, I was at 9.1 tons, so I'm up a ton. So I'm not too worried about running out of wood as the floxes are repopulating, it seems. And now, I am going to deconstruct the manual generator. We no longer need it. And I'm also going to deconstruct the old battery. We no longer need that either. So, next priority is going to be up to you. I can improve the power plant if you'd like, or work on any of the other projects here. So improving the power plant would be to maybe add in actual power plant so that we can do tune-ups. But I'm happy to take another task if you so wish. So currently, the morale needed for everyone is about 7, and the morale they're getting is at least double what they need, if that affects your vote at all. And then let's take a look at the relative temperature. So relative temperature, it is definitely warmer in the bathroom, as the compost produces a lot of heat, as does the ice liquefier. The reason I mention this is the lab and the bathroom produces more heat than really anywhere else. So moving that somewhere where it is not going to be a problem long term is wise. Because as I wait to do it, the heat, it's a lot harder to remove that added heat into the environment than to get ahead of it and sequester it early. When will I pump out air? I'll pump out air when the outside of the base is not so pressurized that the actual vent will work. It's these gas vents overpressure at 2,000 grams, and it's sitting right now at 1,600. I could probably enable this gas pump. So let's enable the gas pump and see how far we get before it overpressurizes. Now my power usage is going to shoot up as a result, because the constant pump is going to require a lot more power than we normally use in this base. But the potential load max is still not so high that it's going to cause any problems. So here, as you can see, the gas vent overpressure is already happening. That didn't take very long. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I wasn't bothering to pump. I mean, I suppose I could leave it on. It's just going to take a long time for it to fully work as intended. Alright, looks like you guys want me to explore. So here's the thing. If I start exploring, there is a very fair argument to be made that I should start working on checkpoints. So in terms of my actual base design, this was a corridor that I was leaving open to both act as a nature reserve, potentially, and to also act for fire poles and for transport tubes much later on, so that we could very quickly traverse around the base. But around here, I'm probably going to want a checkpoint so that we can keep everything on the outside and everything on the inside. So if I do want to start exploring, which, you know, is something I do want to do, I think what we need to do is to start constructing checkpoints, which is honestly a pretty big task. So I don't think I'm going to accomplish all of that in one run. I'm going to probably re-pull for it. So the idea behind that is coming up to, I would say, like, this area is good enough to work in. So coming up to about here and digging out, and obviously we're going to get a lot of oxalite as a result of this. So digging out all this oxalite and putting the oxalite where it needs to be. And then eventually building suit docks. Meaning that we're going to need a whole lot of additional research before we can actually do that. Because that would mean a Atmos suit checkpoints, as well as an exosuit forge, as well as a whole lot of other things like oxygen filtration and plumbing, and it's a big task. But it's one to ensure the long-term safety and security of our duplicates. And Kaiju, thank you for the gifted subs. Cheers. There. We still have shrewberries and omelets, which I would like to consume before we start processing the pike apples again. I'm also going to tell my duplicants to disable harvest for the... Oh, it's already disabled. I was going to say disable harvest for all of the farm. Because we don't need any more pike apples at the moment. We, like, over-engineered our farm. And there we go. So that's oxygen refinement. Or decontamination, rather. So let's start working towards hazard protection. Because hazard protection is going to require at least one of the requirements in order to have proper airlocks. Alright, as far as deodorizers go, I'm going to set one up here. And I'm going to move this bottle emptier. What was in here? Sweep only polluted ice? Yeah, I'm gonna re-engineer this a little bit so that it's better filtered. And then other spots that are a little farty, let's call it. I'll put one there. I don't know why there's a bunch of fart gas there, but there is, so I'll put a deodorizer there as well. So this is just a tiny side task, not particularly immediately related to what we're working on. So this is for polluted water only, but I'm going to set that to 9, because we definitely don't want polluted water sitting around our base for too long. Oh, it's floating up through the mesh tiles in the bathroom? Yeah, that's what's going on, isn't it? And then this was for polluted ice. Liquefiable polluted ice. So basically, all of the polluted stuff goes over here. Now, let's also hook this up with wires. They didn't used to take power, but that was changed a little while ago. The breathability of the living quarters is perfect. And the pressure of the airlock is dropping. Although it's to become full vacuum takes a very long time. One thing that is convenient is the new oxalate that we're digging up is not decaying, and it's not decaying because it's overpressured. So it's a really good time to take advantage of that by digging it up so that it won't outgas and putting it into the oxalate storage bin so that we can have it later for sconces. Oh, I did not see that we removed the floor here. Oops. Oh, because we probably put a wire into, like, an ice tile. That makes sense. All right. Everything is running fairly well. So what I could do is, to give myself a little extra room, make the checkpoint somewhere up here, to the right, in this area. And I think... Actually, you know what? Have you guys decide what direction to explore first, up or down. Now, even if we're going down, I do want to exploit this oxalate while it's overpressured, but if you want me to go down, I would set up a checkpoint around here instead. And a hydrate. Cheers. And if you want to look at the decor overlay, here you go. So decor around the mess hall, kitchen, and printing pod are really good. And then, of course, the living area over here is amazing. Amazingly high. As a result of all the wood. And then everywhere else that is really deprioritized is as ugly as you would think it would be. Alright, I'm going to set the wood burner up to 8. And I'm going to do a fuel request threshold of 80%. So basically, if fuel drops below 80, we refuel it. For now, I'll set this as an emergency because we do want to get power back on. It's slowing us down, and I'm kind of surprised that nobody's brought it wood. One of the issues that we might have is that our wood storage over here, this old wood pile, might need to be broken down so that it is not competing with the new wood storage. Which, if wood was being stored right next to the wood burner, it would be a little bit easier to supply. So new printables. No. Ideal seeds, I guess. And then we can sweep this up and it will actually get put where we need to use it. Over at the wood burner. I think that will help. Did I place my printing pod at the center or random? That would be in world traits. So that is already listed in the details, but in this case I can tell you it's in the center. Alternative pod location is the world trait when it isn't. So we wanted this to be a bit of a dip here. So I'm going to start to replace the snow tiles around here with granite ones. And then the plan is to have the suit dock in this location here, meaning that although it might seem weird, I'm going to backfill the ground here. How much harder in the game is the random place pod? Random. It could be a lot harder, it could be a lot easier, because if it's totally random, it's kind of hard for me to answer that. So, anywhere you start, your, like, center biome is going to be what the asteroid's default is, but everything around you might change. So if you're, for instance, a lot closer to space, or a lot closer to the core, that might change the ambient temperature and the resources available. But, you know, for better or for worse, I can't answer because it's a random location, so it's a random result. The other thing I might want to do is to create a temporary holding pit for the ethanol that we currently have. No, I guess I could leave it there. We just have a lot of, like, liquid ethanol. But I'm going to be setting up a liquid lock over here eventually, so maybe it's not all that necessary. But I will start sweeping the bottom up. Oh, that's weird. Yes, because this was sweep only. Oops. We accidentally dumped more ethanol where it doesn't belong. I'm just going to fully deconstruct these bottle emptiers, because we don't really need them anymore, and I just accidentally used them, so that's not something that we necessarily want. So, for priorities, I'm going to set Sean as higher priority supply rather than store, and tidy. So that I don't have to worry as much about the wood burner, as he is set to supply the wood burner more. Because we've had a bunch of power outages, and it's simply a result of both the gas pump requiring a whole lot of power, because it's very power hungry to run constantly, compared to the amount of power that we're generating, and also he was set to tidy up more than supply, so he was spending his time doing all the tidy tasks that I'd queued up. And you guys want me to explore downwards first. Got it. Oh, you are going to be all sorts of stuck. One another advantage to double walling like this is double walling helps to isolate temperature bleed as well. Quite a bit. I could have just double walled this area. I just wanted to over engineer it because it's kind of a cool project. But double walling works fairly well for temperature isolation. So then the suit dock will start around here. Looking at the research tree, we really haven't made a lot of progress, mostly because of the power outages. Hopefully changing those priorities around so the wood burner is burning wood more frequently will help. I think I'm going to go back on what I originally said. It might not be a terrible idea to actually tune up the wood burner so that it produces a little bit more power than it was before. Meaning I'm going to make some small changes to this. Okay. Taking a look at our flux population, critter 9. So instead, I am going to crack a single, or actually 2 flux eggs, so that we have a little bit of extra wiggle room. But not a repeating task. Just take 2 flux eggs at random and go ahead and crack it. With the area all warm, will the dupe still run all the way to the wood stove to get warm? Yes. Once this area is warm enough, I can put the wood stove, like, here, so it's easier to get the buff, rather than have it around the sleeping quarters, but it's still below freezing in here, so I'm going to want to have them benefit from it by covering the sleeping quarters in that way. Okay, we don't have anyone that knows electrical engineering, but the next point that Scorpio earns, I can put into electrical engineering so that you can tune up the wood burner and have the wood burner make more power for the fuel it consumes for greater efficiency. And then this here is for refined metal. So I'm going to put refined metals in here at 9. Because you use refined metal to tune up. Now obviously using the available mercury would be ideal. My only concern is that the mercury will turn from a solid to a liquid if I bring it over there. So I'd rather not use it in this space. So the refined mercury is going to be useful when we have a different type of power plant. Like, let's say, imagine sometime down the line, we end up with an ethanol burner. So we are burning the liquid ethanol that is available on this biome and turning it into power to store the mercury in an adjacent deeply frozen area that is temperature isolated from the power control station so that we can use the mercury for tune-ups and not really have to worry about the mercury turning into a liquid. So let's take a look at the research tree again. We got ourselves textile production. We're working on improved ventilation. So the other things we're going to want to do is the actual suits are going to need its own oxygen supply. So the easiest way to do this is just to have a gas pump to pump oxygen from the area and to put it into some sort of storage tank and then into the suit docks so the suits will have their own oxygen so that the people using the suits, you know, can breathe in potentially unoxygenated environments. Additionally, the airlock here, it's maybe down to a quarter of the pressure that it was originally, maybe a little bit lower. It takes a very long time to make a true vacuum, but it's underway. It's working. The other thing I wanted to do is, even though we are working to go downwards first, I wanted to dig out all the oxalite and put it into liquid storage so that it doesn't necessarily outgas. So I'll continue doing that down there. So, Nabla has some stress. Let's take a look at that. Nabla, you are stressed not because your morale is not being met, so it must be some other factor. Your stress climbed because you were wet, maybe? It's kind of hard to tell what triggered it, but I'm guessing it was you were cold and wet. So I'll keep an eye on that. Because I could always focus a little bit more on morale if that becomes an ongoing problem. I don't suspect it will be, but, you know, keeping an eye on it is going to be helpful nonetheless. So now this is a full-fledged power plant, which is good. Oh, we have meteor showers. So one of the interesting things that I wanted to check, because I think this is one of the first times we had meteor showers here, is Sean has the bio that... God, where is it? That he is a rock fan, so he gets +3 to all attributes during meteor showers. So even though we're like deep underground, Sean, as you can see in his stats, are much higher than normal just because of the duration of the meteor showers, which is a very interesting trait, which is new. So he's getting +3 to everything. Good. We are sweeping up all that oxalite and true berries. Will the ferns produce enough CO2? So the ferns aren't producing CO2, they're filtering CO2 back into oxalite. It's not 100% efficient. So if you rely on just the dupes breathing, it won't produce enough. If that answers your question. Arbor acorn. Ooh. Yeah. Research supply doctor. Yeah. Let's go with the acorn. That's a nice seed to have, I think. So we're just waiting on some of the research to wrap up. So that we can start to build a bit of an airlock. So once we get hazard protection, we're also probably going to want a place to put the oxygen, which is going to be really nice. So we'll also want HVAC for the gas reservoir, so that I can have a large tank of oxygen, so that the airlocks aren't necessarily bottlenecked by brownouts. Because if you don't have a lot of pooled oxygen ready to be put into these suits, if you have a brownout, all of a sudden your suits no longer operate, which is not so good. We only have 2,800 kcals omelets left. And I do want to try to eat all the shrewberries. Shrewberries are very low morale food, but the longer I wait to eat low morale food, the worse it will be when I want to. There's almost an argument to be made of just compost the shrewberries and rely on pike apples only. But it's just easier to eat the raw shrewberries, so that's what I'm planning on doing unless it produces a whole lot of stress. That's the plan for that, at least. Alright, taking a look at the relative temperature. It is quite cold in there, but I'm looking for the hottest hotspots. It's still frozen everywhere, which is good. But I do think that the latrine area is going to need addressing sooner or later, as it is the greatest heat producer outside the base at the moment. Wow! The oxygen here is super pressurized. When does ears burst? I don't think they're bursting yet. We're overpressurized, but that's not zero concern. So what's happening here is that the carbon dioxide outgassing from the wood burner is putting so much carbon dioxide into the this airlocked space that the remaining oxygen is becoming pressurized. It's not that the sconce is outgassing pressurized oxygen, because it doesn't. It's just that there's so much carbon dioxide, it's pushing up against the oxygen that remains. It's not dangerous yet, but it's something to keep an eye on for the future, because we're relying on alveol vera to convert the oxygen back into the carbon dioxide back into oxygen, and then it produces oxalate that then we can store. So it really hasn't hit an equilibrium, but until it becomes a problem, I don't necessarily need to address it. It's just definitely out of equilibrium. Equilibrium is like a big concept for oxygen not included, though. Is to try to have things nice and balanced. So producing roughly the same amount of food that you consume, or producing roughly the same amount of oxygen that you breathe, or, you know, producing roughly the same amount of power that you require. Because things that are really wildly out of equilibrium usually becomes a source of problems for a long-term colony. So this is definitely a source of an issue long-term. One easy solution, however, if this is a problem, is getting rid of carbon dioxide through alveol vera isn't our only means. We could, of course, pump the carbon dioxide down here to the other alveol vera farm, or alternatively, go up to space and just dump it into space. That's a totally reasonable solution if we find ourselves with more carbon dioxide than we know what to deal with. Or alternatively, use the carbon dioxide for farming purposes, because there are some plants that require carbon dioxide as an environmental condition for farming, like the mushroom spores, for instance. So again, not a problem for now, but worth keeping an eye on if it spirals out. A lot of the excess carbon dioxide is a result of running this gas pump too. Running a gas pump 24/7, 365 is going to draw a lot more power than we normally would consume. Trying to keep things low budget and efficient. All right, look into the research tree. Boy, oh boy, we really have not made much progress. So Scorpio is working here. I think what I'm going to do is move the Lumen Quartz up to the supercomputer so that we can benefit from the Lumen Quartz and research a little bit faster. I don't have a proper laboratory yet, and that would speed things up a bit more, but not maybe enough to warrant working that as a project. Another thing we might be able to do is to start digging downwards now, even though we haven't necessarily built the airlock, because I really only need the airlock once the environmental conditions outside of our central core base becomes a problem. The thing is, I kind of wanted to lay out what was needed for the airlock first, so that I don't, like, start digging in the wrong spots. That's kind of what I was been waiting for. How's the pup of the family doing? Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm going to raise the computer and the supercomputer up a bit so that Scorpio prioritizes that above other things. And then also look at his priorities. We're lowering storage and operating and keeping research up high. I think that will speed research along a bit. So, if I did start digging for exploration, let's start working on that knowing that this isn't the final path, just so that I can start to get some work done on that front. And with the change of priorities for research, that's becoming a little bit less of an issue, which is good. I'll probably need to displace this ethanol. So I can consider dumping the ethanol into this area here on purpose. All of this is sort of, you know what, I'm going to hold off on that. All of this is sort of requiring me to figure out where my airlock's going to start and end. Meaning that I want to wait a little bit longer. We did just unlock the high pressure gas vent. And as you can see, it requires plastics and refined metals. So the reason why I can't build the better gas vent to be able to outgas here is I just don't have access to that. However, it isn't hyper pressurized on the other side of this vent, so it hasn't really been much of an issue. Mostly because the oxygen here is pretty thin, so it's not a lot of gas that's being moved. So some other things to consider once we have a proper airlock is, generally speaking, it is safest to make sure that no contaminants come through the airlock as well. So that means, and this is why I said it was so complicated, having a gas reservoir to store the oxygen for the suits is not required, but very nice. And then also making sure that we ore scrub, so that if there are germs present on raw ore that is coming through the airlock, the contents that we're bringing through the airlock is to be made safe. And then also to make sure that we wash our hands. Now, washing our hands, at least for now, we can always use the wash basin because we don't have access to like an aquifer of liquid water. But in the future, it might be wise to work on somehow getting liquid water set up. I'm going to give him super hard digging. Only achievement for maxing out a skill. To pay the bills, use the duplicating skill points to buy an entire branch of the skill tree. So initially, I'm going to want like a sink basins. And then eventually I'm going to want, or a wash basins rather, and then eventually I'm going to want sinks. So the way this is going to look is, at the start of the airlock, we're going to have the sink basins, and then the ore scrubbers, and then the suits, and then the actual checkpoint. And it's quite a lot of setup. Which is why I said it might be a multi-stage project. I'll pull about that again soon. Are there any germs on the outside that survive at those temperatures? We'll see. So I'm going to disable these buildings because we haven't actually gone anywhere that requires hand washing, and I don't want them to use fresh water needlessly. And blueprint. Cooking, tidying, biohazard, building, farming, Luddite, critter version, stylish decorator, doctoring, or pipsqueak. As much as I would like to make use of a pip, I think this time I would rather just have the pipsqueak meat. Okay, so these wash basins are now disabled. Good. And we're still getting hazard protection. I think, actually, I want to get decontamination, or rather the ore scrubbers first. So I'm going to switch around just to build right to left. We're almost out of shrewberry. What are you cooking? Oh, you're cooking barbecue because I just killed a pipsqueak. Yeah, that's right. Huh. This move order is like... I'm going to make it an emergency just to move the thing. I'm surprised at level 9 it wasn't getting moved. There we go. So about the ore scrubbers. Ore scrubbers require chlorine gas in order to operate. And there's a few different sources of chlorine gas. Again, this is not something that I necessarily immediately need. So let me back up a little bit. The reason for all of these precautions is when I explore somewhere potentially dangerous, germy, or unoxygenated, etc. So once I get this set up, so what I want to do is I want to lay it out more than actually utilize it so that everything is spaced properly. So it's not necessarily that I'm immediately going to need to start ore scrubbing, for instance. Because I don't need an ore scrub and I don't need to wash my hands unless there's something germy over here. So I might even keep these things disabled until I hit germs. But if I need to go through somewhere that has germs, like a slime biome, that's when it is needed. And it's good to have it built before it's needed than afterwards. Because if I wait until it's actually physically needed, I've probably waited too long. So it's more just like laying out the infrastructure so that I don't need to redesign the airlock in the future. Thank you for tuning in to Oxygen Not Included Frosty Planet, which originally streamed live on Twitch August 1st. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch a next episode or an upcoming stream of mine. Farewell, my fellow duplicates.